All right. All right. All right. Let's get back into it today. You already know. You already know what time it is. I got the comment section yesterday, and I had a couple people that kind of ribbed me a little bit, and they said, "Hey, I'm looking forward to part 2 and 3 and 4." You already know. Everyone knows what time it is. I'm just surprised they didn't go up to 10 because that's how it usually goes. But, I've got a style all my own. Everybody knows this. But let's jump into it today. Today is where we get into the more controversial stuff. So Kevin DeYoung starts, he kind of butters up the audience a little bit. Here's the good things about Doug Wilson and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, even some of the good things that he talks about, there's a little bit of a backhand to some of these compliments, which it's okay, man. I like that kind of style. I have no problem with that. But it's interesting coming from Kevin DeYoung. Reverend Kevin DeYoung, I should say. Because he is a reverend. All right, let's jump back into it. Where the mood misfires. We're talking about the Moscow mood. He says, and yet, for all that is understandable and sometimes commendable about the Moscow mood, there are also serious problems. I mean, I'll tell you right now, it sounds like he's not kidding. It really does. He sounds pretty serious. These are serious problems that we're about to go into here. So let's get our serious caps on. I've got mine on. I hope you have yours. Let's jump into it. He says, in my criticisms that follow, I'm not going to focus on historical or theological disagreements I may have with Wilson. I won't be touching on the federal... I remember this part. When I read this, I actually did laugh out loud for quite some time, but he's like, I'm not going to mention my historical, theological disagreement. Here they all are, and he lists them. It's just like, you could have, Kevin DeYoung, you could have written this and said, I'm not going to mention my historical or theological disagreements with him, period, and moved on. But instead, he said, I'm not going to mention what I'm about to mention. He doesn't say I'm not going to mention. He's not going to focus on them. But he does want you to know that there are many theological and historical disagreements. He says, I won't be touching on federal vision or paedo communion or his views on antebellum South or his arguments for Christian nationalism or his particular brand of postmillennialism. My concerns are not so much with one or two conclusions that Christians may reach if Wilson becomes their intellectual mentor. My bigger concern, there's a lot of concerns here. Bros are concerned. My bigger concern is with the long-term spiritual effects of admiring and imitating the Moscow mood. For the mood that attracts people to Moscow is too often incompatible with Christian virtue, inconsiderate of other Christians, and ultimately inconsistent with the stated aims of Wilson's Christendom project. That is some fantastic writing. I have to say, Kevin DeYoung, nobody will accuse him of not being intelligent and compelling. I love the alliteration there. It is very, very strong writing. He says this is incompatible with Christian virtue. It's inconsiderate of other Christians and inconsistent with the stated aims of Wilson's Christendom project. Very good sentence. I like that. Rather than expounding these claims in abstract terms, let's look at a couple of concrete examples. 5 years ago, Doug Wilson and Canon Press started something they call No Quarter November. The idea is that during November, in addition to giving away free resources, Wilson and his crew will show no mercy, parentheses, give no quarter, to their enemies. Each year, in advance of No Quarter November, Wilson puts out a promotional video. They always involve a good deal of fire and more than a little sarcasm. The 2023 No Quarter November video ends with a Clint Eastwood-style close-up of Wilson puffing a massive cigar, strapping on a giant flamethrower, and setting ablaze an assortment of Disney characters and media logos. Here's what Wilson says in the first half of the video. Welcome back to No Quarter November. For 11 months out of the year, I am notoriously timid, as cautious and polite as a Southern Baptist raising funds for the ERLC. But the month of November is a time for taking no prisoners and for granting no quarter. If you think of my blog as a shotgun, this is the month where I saw off all my typical careful qualifications and blast away with a double-barreled shorty. Everything we do this month will be focused on one singular goal. We want to help you apocalypse-proof your family. But why should you listen to me about such things? Well, when it comes to the culture war and culture building, we have been at this for half a century now, much longer than such things have been cool to talk about in the green room at G3. That's a good one. I like that. That's a good one. Like my parents taught me, a strong family isn't possible without quick, full, and honest confession of sin, without any wussy excuse making. And especially now, it's just as important to not to confess and repent of things that aren't really sins, because lying is bad, and so is being a wuss. I like that. Yeah, here's the thing. I think people are surprised when they hear this about me, but I actually don't follow Doug Wilson that carefully. I know some people that, you're just chomping at the bit every single time you see a new blog post drop or a new video drop, and you're just and I get it. I mean, it's totally fine. I've got people like that that I follow that every time they drop a video, I'm on it, man. I'm on it. And so a lot of people do that with Doug Wilson, and I really don't. I do watch Doug Wilson, I do listen to Doug Wilson, and I do read Doug Wilson, but I pick and choose. Like if the topic looks interesting to me, I will read it, I will watch it. And if it doesn't, I usually never ever read it or never watch it. So that's kind of that's how I follow Doug Wilson. But this is when I do follow Doug Wilson, when I do read his stuff. I mean, this is the stuff I come for. It's very funny. It's good writing. I like it. I like it. It's aesthetically very appealing. It's a visceral follow. Oh, man. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Kevin DeYoung, he says, you really should watch the 4-minute video if you haven't already. Notice several things about the mood. First, it strikes a tone that is deliberately sarcastic and just a bit naughty. No, just a little bit naughty. Oh, man. No, that's not how I would have described it. But I can see, I mean, I'm not going to go over here and nitpick the guy. I can see why he would say that. That's fine. No one really thinks Wilson is timid and cautious the rest of the year. Actually, that's not true. I'll be honest with you. I actually do understand what Doug Wilson is saying. Now, I would never say Doug Wilson is timid. He's not really timid, that's for sure. So it's a joke. He's being a little sarcastic. It's a joke. He's not timid. But I would say, though, that Doug Wilson is pretty cautious. And I've often said this, and I'm not being sarcastic here. I'm not trying to be funny. I think Doug Wilson and the whole thing about all the he doesn't want to do the careful qualifications during No Quarter November, not too nuanced, he's just going to kind of shotgun blast it. I actually think that Doug Wilson is the king of nuance. I think he's extremely nuanced. And I know around here on my channel, nuance is kind of like a 4-letter word. It's a naughty word on my channel. But nuance doesn't have to be bad. In fact, I think nuance is good. It's just that when Big Eva people talk about nuance, what they mean is compromise. That's what they mean. They mean that we no longer tell the full truth, or we don't tell the full truth directly. Like oftentimes when people say, oh, that's not nuance, they mean, oh, you haven't compromised with the world enough yet. That's what a lot of people mean when they say nuance. But actually, nuance is good because you need nuance to really completely understand things. Life is not usually as neat and clean as we would like it to be. A lot of times, it really depends. I was actually on the phone with somebody just the other day, and it was kind of it was a very cordial call. But it was there's a controversy there. It was an adversarial type of a call, sort of. I mean, it wasn't really exactly that. But I remember telling him a number of times, it's like, this is a messy situation, and it's obviously, we wish we had done things differently, at a certain time and stuff like that, but we didn't. And now we've got to deal with the situation that's in front of us as it is, because, we can't go back in time. We don't have a time machine. So we have to deal with this messy situation, and we got to have some nuance here. I think that's true. That nuance is good. And Doug Wilson is the king of nuance. In fact, one of the things I think about Doug Wilson is that I don't follow him as religiously as some of you guys, is sometimes I think he's too nuanced. And it's not in a bad way. Like, again, he's not compromised. He's nuanced without compromise. I'm not saying he's compromised. But sometimes I find it a little bit hard to follow. This is just A simple criticism. I like Doug. You know, everybody knows that I like Doug. I'm not saying don't read him. I'm just saying sometimes personally, for me, you know, I went to public school. I don't understand things as well as some people, and I find the nuance a little bit difficult to follow. So it's not really true that no one really thinks that he's not cautious the rest of the year. I think he is. Kevin DeYoung, that's the sarcasm. The naughty part is that Wilson uses words wussy and wuss, adolescent slang for someone weak and effeminate. These are words most Christian parents don't allow their kids to use, since the terms probably originated as a combination of wimp and another word I won't mention. You can just say it. It's okay. We're adults here. We're adults here. Man. What is this thing? What is this thing about like all of a sudden these words, if you use them out of context, like they're somehow magic words. You can't even use them out of context. Like you can't even use these words if you're quoting someone else for effect. You know, hey, look at this guy. He's got a potty mouth. This is what he said, and it's like now you got the potty mouth, and it's like, and then sometimes people will put the little asterisks in place of the vowels, and it's like, does that make you clean? You put the asterisks there. Everybody knows what you just said. I mean, that doesn't make you clean. I can't think of something more pharisaical than that. Like, you're quoting someone, and you're like, you put the asterisk, and it's like, man. Anyway, he says that is naughty. These are words. Okay, move on. Second. Oh, by the way, there are lots of words that I don't want my kids to use that if they were adults, they could use, and sometimes would be appropriate to use. I call things stupid quite a bit, but not in front of my sons. Not in front of my sons, because I don't want my sons using the word stupid, because they are not equipped to know when it's appropriate to use the word. There are certain words that sometimes an adult human being can use, because he's got the ability to discern and decipher the difference between when it's an appropriate usage and when it's an inappropriate usage. Or, even if it's an inappropriate usage, is the context relevant? You know, I've said this many times, one of the things that I've done in my life is I've been in a few fights, and, my MO has kind of always been to avoid fights if at all possible. You know what I mean? I try not to fight. I do, and I'm willing to fight, but I don't want to fight. That's something I've said many times. And sometimes language that I would never use in any other context is a good way in a situation where there's someone threatening coming, and you use a few choice words at them to show them that you're not going to just take this line down, and it'll prevent the fight. It'll actually cause them to back down. There's an appropriate usage for words like that. But my kids aren't ready for that yet. They're not. My kids are 5, 6, 8. You know what I mean? Like, they're not ready for that yet. So this idea that Christian parents wouldn't even let you use, yeah, because they're kids. That's not an argument, Kevin. Doug's an adult. The words aren't magic. It's like I'm too hot. I'm getting too worked up here. These aren't magic words. They're not magic. They're not magically like evil or something like that. You can use them in a certain context. Anyway. All right. Second, the video takes cheap shots at other Christians. Wilson's sarcastic bite is not first directed towards the wicked, the hard-hearted, or the forces of evil in our world. He takes a swipe at the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission and at the G3 conference. Both are conservative Baptist groups. Man, you would expect, I think that this was the biggest surprise in the article, I think, for me, because I think Kevin DeYoung is very smart. I saw some of you in the comments that you think I'm maybe being a little naive with Kevin DeYoung, and let me just say to you straight up, you might be right. You might be right. I totally, and it's happened to me in the past where I've been, potentially a little naive. I mean, it happened with Owen Strawn, for example. I had his back many times, And I knew that he was woke like 5 minutes ago, but it looked like he was changing. And some of you guys saw through that from Jump Street. I mean, I'm telling you, I had so many people that would hear me kind of praising Owen Strawn with his anti-wokeness stuff. And you would hear me praising it, and you'd get me beside, and you say, hey, that guy's a coward, dude. He's just doing this because this is like he's riding this wave today. He will ride another wave tomorrow. And I was like, I know, I hear you, but I want to encourage people, man. I want to encourage people that are figuring this out. Maybe they're not 100% there, but I want to encourage. And I was like, but they were right. I was being naive, man. So you guys might be right. I'm not. I have no qualms with you guys. I get it. I'm willing. Listen, here's the thing. I'm encouraging Kevin DeYoung. I think he's on the right team. I think so. But you gotta have different layers for people. I think if Kevin DeYoung was working with me, for example, hypothetically, I mean, he probably doesn't even know who I am, but let's just say he was. I wouldn't trust him with everything. You know what I mean? I wouldn't trust him with everything. I wouldn't speak to him the way I speak to Joel Webbin. You know what I mean? I wouldn't. I trust Joel Webbin implicitly. There's certain people that I trust, with just about anything. If I'm kicking around something that I know is kind of outside the Overton. That's never happened. I talked to a guy like Isker. I talked to a guy like Webbin. I talked to a guy like Chalk Knox, stuff like that. But I wouldn't talk to a guy like Kevin because I don't fully trust him yet. You know what I mean? But that's okay. That's okay. You got different levels of trust. You got the circle of trust, like in Meet the Parents. Anyway. So, but anyway, this is the biggest mistake in this article because I mean, G3, I would say they're still, pretty conservative. That's not a mistake, but the ERLC is it's a conservative Baptist group. The ERLC. Do you remember when the ERLC put out that thing about how the pioneering edge, like the cutting edge of pro-life is human rights for animals? Animal human rights. Or person rights or something like that. It wasn't human rights. It was like personal rights. Maybe it was human rights. I don't remember. It was wild. The ERLC. You got Russell Moore like this when he's meeting Obama. Ooh. The ERLC. And I think this is a mistake. And also it tips his hand a lot. He's seeing people, pushing that Overton window further and further and further. He's seeing people escape this big Eva ghetto that they've constructed for us, where there's only the certain opinions are allowed. He's seeing people escape. There's a prison break right now. People are breaking free from people like Matt Chandler and people like Tim Keller and people. They're breaking free, and here he's trying to bring us back. He's like we're the fugitive slaves, and he's like one of these bounty hunters trying to find the fugitive slaves to bring them back onto the plantation. The ERLC, he's trying to say, no, the ERLC is conservative. Here I stand. What a joke. What a joke. That was a huge misstep because it tips his hand. And if it doesn't tip his hand, it really shows how clueless he is about what's really going on out there. The ERLC is a conservative Baptist group. You've got to be kidding me. He says both are conservative Baptist groups, I might add, that would be on the same side with Wilson on almost every important cultural battle. Again, let's take G3 out of it because I think he's right about G3 for the most part. The ERLC? No. No, they wouldn't. Yeah, this organization, the wokest organization out there in Big Eva land, yeah, they're on the same side of almost every political battle as Doug Wilson. They're against abortion. Did you know that? They're against abortion. Oh, man, what a joke. He says, it's fine if Wilson wants to disagree with these groups. They've disagreed with him at times. But Wilson doesn't mention them in the video in order to make a serious argument. He uses them for a punchline. If you like Wilson, you're supposed to think, oh, no, he didn't. Oh, no, he didn't. Why did he say that? Who says that? Oh, no, he didn't. Black people don't even say that anymore. No, he didn't. Shoo. supposed to think, no, he didn't. That's hilarious. And if you like the ERLC or G3, you're supposed to be triggered, because if Moscow can watch their opponents get triggered, that is also funny. That's true. It is. When serious criticism is leveled at Moscow, the famous response, the response often includes a smattering of mockery and memes. That isn't Wilson using his famous serrated edge to make a prophetic point against a godless culture. This is intentionally making fun of other Christians for a quick chuckle. Here's the thing, Reverend DeYoung. I'm assuming you grew up amongst other boys. Maybe you didn't. I don't know anything about your personal life. But I grew up, I had a younger brother, and I had a lot of friends that were male. This is at the time of my life when, girls were icky and, who wanted to have anything to do with them kind of thing. And, even later in life when girls weren't icky anymore, I still preferred to hang out with my friends, my male friends, you know what I mean? Like, girls were interesting, for other reasons, but if I was going to have fun, I'd go out with my friends, you know what I mean? I'd go out with my male friends and stuff like that. And in those kinds of relationships, there's a lot of making fun, and it's a making fun in love, but also there's some seriousness to it. Like hypothetically, this never happened, but hypothetically, I had a friend who was very into fashion, but not like the traditional kind of male fashion, kind of like the gay kind. And I would make fun of him for this, of course, obviously, all the time. And partly it was in love, because I loved my friend. Partly I was serious. I thought that his interest in, what kind of paisley, pattern he had on his on the inside of his jacket or whatever. I don't know if that was a real thing. I don't even know if paisley is a thing. I was serious. I was like, dude, you're gay, man. Why are you being so gay? I was serious. I thought he ought not act that way. We were checking each other all the time. And they would check me. And then it was just something that we did. And it was part of the way that we expressed our love for one another. You know what I mean? I've said many times, my brother, if he's not, calling me names for a long time, I start to wonder if I did something wrong to offend him. You know what I mean? I wonder if I hurt his feelings or something, because he's no longer cool with me anymore. He's not mocking me anymore. And if he's not mocking me anymore, that's a different kind of relationship. That's something that guys do. At least they should. Because here's the thing. It's fun, number one, but it's also it's kind of it's like training. Right? It's like when you're kids and you're being checked and tested like that. It's like training almost for, number one, to see is this a relationship that I can trust this guy, number one. And number two, like it's like a loving fight to prepare you for an actual fight. You know what I mean? Like if somebody makes fun of me out there in the world, for my beliefs or something like that, I've practiced this so many times that I don't take it, as hardly as I might take it if I'd never been tested before, checked before. This kind of sparring, you know what I mean? This kind of sparring, that's what it's like sometimes. And so, I don't think that Doug Wilson is sure he does this for a chuckle, but there's a serious side to it, of course, because he thinks that G3 should be different than they are, and he definitely thinks the ERLC is different than they are, and sort of to put those together like that, that's an insult to G3 for sure, because I don't think G3 is ERLC yet. They're on the way, though, I'll tell you that. They're on that path, and it's almost like he's checking them a little bit. He's testing them a little bit. And we'll see what happens. But there's nothing wrong with mocking a brother. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong than getting a chuckle at the expense of someone that's on your team, assuming that the ERLC is on our team. I'm not so sure that that's what the joke was here, but maybe. This is something that guys do, and this is part of the visceral attraction to this, because we all us men grew up doing exactly this, and we understand that it doesn't mean I hate my brother, it doesn't mean I hate my friends when I say, dude, why are you acting so gay? It doesn't mean that. It actually is a form of bond. And everyone kind of knows the difference between mean-spirited stuff and things like, you know what I mean? Like, and there have been times where my friends like, cool it on that stuff, man. And you know what happens? Okay. If they're really your friend, if they're really your friend. Anyway, so much of what Big Eva writes when they're so concerned, it is written from the perspective of a mom. That's right. Like your mom, like if my sons were doing this kind of thing, their mother might not like it and might even tell them to stop. But if I were with my sons and they were doing something similar to this, I wouldn't even bat an eye. I wouldn't even bat an eye because I grew up as a dude. I know what it's like. Big Eva writes from a female perspective. They just do. They just do. I'm not saying that Kevin DeYoung is effeminate. I'm not saying that. But he was trained and brought up in this context where feminine attributes are the only way to be holy, to be righteous. Feminine attributes are the only ones that are truly Christian virtue. And if someone has zeal, if someone has like just, you know what I mean, like something like that, like a Nehemiah, I could easily see someone like Kevin DeYoung rebuking Nehemiah doing the very actions that he did and got set up as an example by God for doing.
Nehemiah, did you really have to beat them? That's not Christian to beat them. Nehemiah, you pulled their beards out, and I'm a little troubled by that. Nehemiah, did you have to call down curses upon them?
I could easily see that. Doug Wilson has a more full-orbed view of how to serve the Lord and what Christian virtue is, and zeal is part of it. It is. It is. Third, the point of No Quarter November is explicitly about culture warring and culture building. Rightly understood, it is good to do both of these things, but it is instructive to see that Wilson's stated aim is to help you apocalypse-proof your home. I think it's safe to say that this is what Wilson aims to do, not just in November in an intensified fashion, but during the other 11 months of the year. And in Wilson's mind, preparing for the apocalypse means doing battle against the forces of leftism in our world. And Wilson's public persona is largely about commenting on the culture, pushing back on the culture, lampooning the culture, and getting Christians ready for the coming cultural collapse. I mean, that's a good point. Is that supposed to be bad? Because this is supposed to be his fear, right? This is supposed to be the things that are deeply troubling, deeply concerning. What was it again? Serious. This is supposed to be a serious problem. The fact that Doug Wilson spends time helping you to get ready for the coming cultural collapse. Reverend, again, I went to public school. Can you help me understand why that is a serious problem? Can you help me understand? I don't get it. I'm a little confused. Fourth, the video is squarely focused on Wilson himself. On one level, that is not surprising. Christian institutions and organizations often use their founder, president, or leading voice as the face of the ministry. But the focus here is not on Wilson as the conduit of biblical teaching and doctrinal truth, or even as the instrument of helpful cultural analysis. The focus is on Wilson himself, Wilson as a rebel, Wilson as a gunslinger, Wilson as a taboo-breaking cigar smoker, Wilson as the courageous hero we need in a crazy world like ours. No Quarter November is selling a carefully cultivated personality and image, Wilson's personality and Wilson's image. Again, I have to say, that's true. That's true. Where's the serious problem? I don't understand. Again, maybe you can help me, I have my IQ checked. I know what my IQ is. So I should be able to understand this, but I simply don't. Maybe you're just in the stratosphere or something, and you're talking on 4D chess here. What's the problem? What's the problem? Doug's promoting his own blog. This is his blog. It's his blog. It's the Doug. It's even called DougWills.com. DougWills.com. He's promoting his blog. It's his blog. Who else would be what? I think we got to stop there. This has been going on for 30 minutes. So this is part 2. We're going to continue in part 3, maybe tomorrow, and we'll see where this goes. But this is just very, very interesting stuff. It's really, it doesn't take a genius. It really doesn't. I mean, Big Eva is curated and cultivated and very carefully promoting a really soft version of Christianity. And you know what? Softness is part of Christianity, because of course there's times for tenderness. Ecclesiastes, there's a time for everything under the sun. But Big Eva and these kinds of perspectives, that list of there's a time for everything under the sun, all of the stuff that's like a little too harsh, they pretend like it's not there. There's no time for war. There's no time for breaking down. There's a time for building up. There's a time for breaking down. And ERLC, I think, is well beyond the time for breaking down. They pretend like half of that list is not even there. It's not even there. Now we're in the Christian time, and there's only a time for
The stuff that makes you feel warm and cuddly.
Oh, and by the way, don't apocalypse-proof your house, because that's somehow scary. It doesn't take a genius. That's Big Eva. We've been served a steady diet of that for decades. And now we've got some people out there. Doug is one of them. He's been doing it for decades. But now we've got some people out there that are like, well, hold on a second. That's incomplete. We can act like men. We can do things that men do. We can check each other. We can rib each other. We can spar with each other. We can be funny. We can be cutting. We can be biting. We can use words like wussy if we want to. And it's a visceral attraction, of course, because it's almost like, aha, there you go. Yeah, that's right. We actually don't have to become women in order to be Christians. We actually don't have to do that. Women are great, and we love our women, and they can be women, even in the kingdom of God. We can actually still be guys. We can still be dudes. You know what I mean? Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. We're having fun here. I'm looking forward to part 2. God bless you. Take care.
Mi amor por ti.